Rugby League on Radio Yorkshire at RLonRY.
Yeah, that's the way to get involved then this evening at RLonRY. Your thoughts on anything going on in the world of Rugby League. I'm laughing because I can see on my computer Gary Schofield loitering in the background behind Mark Wilson. I heard him singing a few moments ago. Thankfully, that wasn't on air. Mark Wilson, a very good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Rich. Scully has been singing, warming up on the microphone. Wherever we take him, we can't take him anywhere. He misbehaves. You know the rules by now, Rich. We are sat in Phil Kaplan's bookshop tonight. Paul Cooke is here to sign copies of his new book, Judas. Great read as well. We've given away a copy on the last tackle in the last couple of weeks. We're going to be talking to Paul tonight as well, get his thoughts on the Rugby League season and, of course, that fantastic new book. We'll hear from Scully as well. We'll look at his England rugby side that he's picked this week. And we'll get the thoughts of Phil as well, who he's on duty, he's multitasking tonight, and I can confirm he makes a very nice cup of tea.
I was looking forward to hearing about his thoughts about the Rugby League of the weekend, because he wrote the report on Russia versus Spain in the World Cup qualifiers, which we all enjoyed over the weekend.
Yeah, he's you know Phil. He loves his Rugby League, whether it's Serbia, Belgium.
Was he in Moscow? That's the big question.
Was he in Moscow? I couldn't say. He doesn't, to me, look as though he's been on a plane for 24 hours, and I haven't seen kegs of vodka in the back room, and I've been in there, so.
One of those big Russian hats. I guess the first thing we should talk about is the announcement today, the unsurprising announcement that Sam Burgess has been chosen as captain for the England squad for the Four Nations. Of course, he can't captain the team on Saturday against France because he's suspended, but will be in charge for the game against New Zealand in a week on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it was a big price as well, wasn't it, to be named the England captain. Scully, what do you make? Sam Burgess, England captain, you happy with that?
Oh, very happy, yeah. There's only two contenders really, Matt, to be honest with you. That's obviously Sam and James Graham. But, yeah, can't fault for that. And hopefully now, certainly from what happened with him in Rugby Union last year, we all know what happened and the way the stick what he got, and not justified, to be honest with you, because I felt as though he did very well. Rugby Union, certainly for the national side, but he's back where he belongs now, and no qualms whatsoever about being captain.
Interesting stuff. Phil, what do you make? Sam Burgess, England captain, are you happy with that?
Absolutely perfect. The right choice. The irony being, of course, they can't be captain in the game against France because he's banned, so I would imagine James Graham probably will be for that match. But in terms of PR value, absolutely. And I'd be going aggressive about this Rugby Union, because a lot of the headlines in a lot of the networks are, oh, what did you get out of Rugby Union? I'd now be saying, it's not about Rugby Union. This is my game. This is the one that you should watch if you really love open and expansive Rugby League. I have nothing to be ashamed of in Rugby Union, but I'm so pleased to be home, and I'd be using that, definitely. Go aggressive.
Yeah, a good appointment as well. Did you get a chance to speak to Wayne Bennett last week, or have you read up on his interview, etc.?
No, I'll hopefully see him next Monday at the launch of the Four Nations. He's interesting, Wayne, isn't he? Because when he speaks, you want to stop and listen to what he says. It's just that he doesn't speak that often. And sometimes less is more. It adds to the mystique about the man. I'm happy that we've got a man who has got an aura about him, and you don't hear cliches from him every 5 minutes. I think it's great that we see him sparingly, we listen to him with sort of intent, and then we get the message across. But I'm liking what I'm hearing from people like Sam. And I appreciate that Steve McNamara created this Team England, but Sam's talking about how Wayne is relating to his players in camp, that they only got together, I think, Saturday. And he's already talking about the influence that Wayne's having going around. We're all mates together, and he's speaking to everybody, and he's giving them little bits and pieces outside of the training routine. And that's that last 5 minutes of a game when you dig in as deep as you can. What's Wayne told me about myself, about the team, about the process, about what we need to do? And that's all the kind of thing that we don't get to know from the outside, and I'm not sure we should know. I think, again, the man with no name, the cowboy, the guy who rides into town, does the job and rides off again. I think this is a different era for England Rugby League, and actually quite excited about not just the England squad, which I think we spoke about last week, and said there aren't too many people we would change in it, but the fact that we've now seen Australia and New Zealand play, and the Aussies are clearly up for this tournament. They look really good in Perth. The Kiwis did what the Kiwis do, and that is, didn't play particularly well, lull us into a false sense of security and get better as the tournament goes on. But although the halfbacks misfired, you look at that New Zealand pack, and that's the best pack in the tournament. Then you see the likes of Lachlan Cooke flying in to play for Scotland. Luke Douglas is here, and obviously he's now signed for St Helens. And I think we need to get excited about international rugby league. We've seen all the media outlets this afternoon carry the story of Sam being the captain. We've seen, obviously, European qualifiers for the World Cup this weekend. Moscow was about 4 degrees, bit chilly, but I wore a scarf, got away with it. But it's great, and, you know, Spain played, and we should laud them. It doesn't matter that they lost 40 points to 6. They've only been going for 3 years. You know, Jamaica over and played a game against the domestic Ireland team yesterday. Hopefully we're all going to Wakefield on Friday night to watch Jamaica play Wales. I think the fact that we've had 22 international squads play, you know, I haven't yet had the report in, but apparently it was really good in Vanuatu, who beat the Solomon Islands. But this is what we want, because it gets people talking about rugby league who don't normally come across its radar, and the more internationals we can have on a more regular basis, the better. I don't know what the ticket sales are like at all of the venues for the Four Nations, but we do know that the John Smiths is as good as sold out. I don't know if the signs have gone up yet, but I don't think there's a general ticket to be had, only hospitality. I think there's probably some work to do to generate interest in the Olympic Stadium, but that will, I think, come with the likes of Sam seeing him play. People will want to get on board with that, and I think Coventry again has had a pretty good take-up so far, and still a bit to do to get to a sellout, but it's already credible. We're on the verge of the Magic Weekend being announced, which looks like it's going back to Newcastle. Yeah,
common sense prevailing there.
Hopefully. And again, all of these stories coming out at this time. The fixtures are out for Super League on Sunday. It's all building, and it's building through International Rugby League, and we haven't had enough of that.
No, we haven't. Scott, are you excited about the international series coming up for England in the Four Nations?
I am indeed, but I must say about Phil there to me, I don't really think New Zealand have got the best forward pack, to be honest with you. I thought the Aussies at times absolutely ripped them apart, and then I think you look at the England pack, I think they'll be looking to rip in as well, Phil, to be honest with you, so I guess there's plenty of debate there, but very much looking forward to it, yeah. What's the international on Saturday? The Aussies and the Kiwis. I thought the Kiwis are very, very disappointing, and as I said, the forwards for mine, okay, they were okay, that's what I would say, but the halfbacks, absolutely clueless, and to be honest with you, we're stood here now, fellas, and realistically, Sean Johnson and Thomas Luther might as well be stood with us if that's the sort of impact they're looking to make for New Zealand. Sean Kenny-Dow was awful, but let's take nothing away from the Aussies, and one of the main reasons why Big Mal's been brought back, it's quite simple, to put that pride back, to put that passion back into that shirt, because as we all know, State of Origin is used in Australia, it's treated as the biggest event rather than Test football, but Mal's bringing it back there to making sure the Australian jersey means hell of a lot to these players. The spine of the team, Greg Inglis, Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, Jonathan Thurton, outstanding. The young kid as well coming off the bench, Valentine Holmes, absolutely outstanding for his Test debut. So the Aussies for mine on Saturday, they put a marker down. But one thing to show England, they don't need to be frightened of New Zealand. Okay, we know what the Aussies are going to bring, and for mine, when England play New Zealand in the first game at the John Smiths on the 29th of this month, that's the semi-final. Whoever wins that will meet Australia in the final. It's simple, Mark.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? But the days are gone now. England have got nothing to be frightened of, have they, going into this one? Oh,
no, they haven't. And I say the only big doubt, as we've said for many, many years, and, it's the creativity of the half-pack, so that's a big dilemma. For Wayne Bennett, the forward pack's not an issue. We've got plenty of pace out wide. The full-back, which, we're hopefully maybe seeing Johnny Lomax come in there, so there's no issues there. It's all about the creativity. And one thing I'm a little bit worried about here, certainly when I read from Mike Cooper in the piece what he did in League Express today, Mark, it was, we've been all right playing the Aussies and the Kiwis for 60 minutes, but then we seem to lose it for the last 20. I'm hoping that we're not trying to hang in there, because if we do, and this modern day, what they call it now, getting into the arm wrestle, we won't beat the Aussies playing that. We need to play a little bit more vibrancy. We need to play a little bit more purpose out wide and asking questions early doors and take it the game to them. So the interesting factor is, how are we going to play? And quite simple, what's the halfback's going to be? For mine, it should be Gale and Widdop, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure Richard's going to get the tweets out there at RLonRY in terms of who should be playing for England come the start of the Four Nations. You've named your team. We're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail here on Radio Yorkshire tonight. We are live and out. They've let us out of the studio, Scully. What do you reckon to Phil's bookshop? So all right, isn't it?
Oh, yes, very, very smart. I've been in a few times, a couple of signing sessions myself. Me and Phil brought, I think it was the first book we brought out for, wasn't it? Back in 1992. It was a season in the life of Gary Schofield. So So it was a very interesting book. Felt it did okay, and it was pretty good actually. It wasn't just all about the training sessions. It was a little bit of the social side of it as well. So yeah, it went pretty well, mate, didn't it? Went pretty well.
Why doesn't that surprise me that Scully wouldn't have mentioned too much about the training sessions, etc. Phil, I mean, if he brought one out now, it'd be an interesting read, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it was sponsored by Stoggies, that book, wasn't it? Most of it was written in there, that's for sure.
Mark Wilson, are you there?
I am here, yes. All the lights went off on the laptop, and I think it was when Scully started mentioning Doug. He was going to mention Doug Lawton, I think, and that's when the line dropped out, trying to save the listeners the worry.
Well, we were talking about, I can't remember where exactly we got to. I think we were talking about England and the Four Nations. Generally, the feedback is positive. Certainly with Sam Burgess's announcement as captain today, has got media coverage, which is good. I mentioned off while you were away, one comment on the BBC website from one of their reporters saying he was 12 months ago licking his wounds after a bruising World Cup in Rugby Union, which I think was slightly unfair. You can see why Rugby League people have a chip on their shoulders about some media coverage. But he's back. Not had the best of seasons with South, but it looks like towards the end of the season he's going back to his best. And from profile-wise, at least, he is the right man to lead us into this competition.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly would. I think he is, again, Phil said it earlier, we looked at the team when it was announced and thought, wow, that's, it looks a great side. And I think with the choice of captain, Scully mentioned it could have been James Graham. I don't think there'd have been any issue with that either. And Sam's got the gig, but, he leads by example, doesn't he? And I think he does come here with a point to prove, and hopefully he's going to prove it in the Four Nations and lead England by example. But very much a positive one. And I do, you talk about the media coverage and how he was rubbished, if you like, by the Rugby Union media. But I hopefully he'll silence those critics by leading England to success. And I think, as Phil keeps mentioning, the international games, the way that will spread the word with Rugby League, and seeing Sam lifting that Four Nations at the end of the season would be fantastic. So it sounds like the plan. In terms of Twitter, Rich, what's going on Twitter at the minute? RLonRY.
Our friend John Davidson has told Scully, because obviously he's off to Melbourne in a couple of weeks, isn't he? As he keeps saying, has to make sure he knows they're pots, not schooners in Melbourne. Make sure he gets the right thing.
Pots, not schooners, Scully. Are you aware of this measurement of ale, or are you planning on shifting a few when you're down under, Scully? What's happening?
Oh yeah, there's two sizes of alcohol drinks when you're down there, Mark. It's middies and it's schooners. The middies just a little bit smaller than half over here, and the schooners about 3/4 of a pint. So I'll be participating in a few. I would imagine it'd be the schooners. It won't be the small ones.
Did you ask if Phil and I and Rich could come with you next week? Or
that's quite a short answer to that. No.
Okay. I'm glad Nigel didn't send you any more than a tie. And when you put it on, it chokes you in somewhere.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it, Mark Wilson?
I'd just like to say it as it is.
Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's
is.
what it's all about. Listen, I would have loved to have took the Radio Yorkshire team. Don't worry about that down to Australia, but unfortunately, they said there's free economy tickets going, or there's a business class. What do you want? So I took business class and leave you home. Will you miss me? Will you miss me?
No. Quite simply, no, we won't. You know that by now. Just want to talk about Sam Burgess as an individual. What do you think he brings to the captaincy role?
I think he brings that leadership, he brings that purpose, he brings that presence, and that's certainly the way that he has been in the NRL for a few years now. And we all know certainly what happened in the grand final 2 years ago now. And he went to Rugby Union. Everybody was asking the question why, but he wanted to play in the World Cup final for England. But the way he got treated there was quite simple. He was always going to come back to our game. Came back a little bit earlier than maybe anticipated, but one thing for sure, he brings that presence, purpose, and he's a sensational player. And he will be looking, now he's been given the captaincy, he will be looking to put a marker down and certainly showing the fellas that if you get ripped into these Aussies and Kiwis, we've a big chance.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of movement now coming into in with the transfer window, if you like. Obviously, the end of the season has come about now. We're starting to see one or two players. Phil and I were down at Castleford. We were invited down there on Tuesday night. Yeah, they didn't invite you. It's strange, isn't it? But we were down there Tuesday. They were all excited about Junior Moores. He signed a new deal at Cass. That's good news, isn't it?
It is great news. And they say, well, Cass are building something out there. And they say Darryl Powell, OK, they finished fifth, but he would have been, I guess, a little bit disappointed. It was just that inconsistency. What Darryl's wants. He wants consistency, not inconsistency. And again, we can boil it down to them 3 games what they lost at home to Salford, Ilkeston Rovers and Widnes, which maybe cost them a top 4 spot. But yeah, great signing Junior Moore, certainly on that left-hand side. And that left-hand side, as we know, with Webster and Solomona, the big question is Solomona staying? You're led to believe that he's not leaving, so the Castleford fans...
Steve Gill said to me, he said, on and off the record, he's not for sale. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to leave, but at the minute Cass is saying, no, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's great news for Cass, isn't it? And I say they're building something from there, and under Darryl Powell, they've got a great coach, and if they can get that consistency right, then who knows? Maybe a top 4 side.
Phil, we were asked about Junior Moores. The fans down at Cass, they were very, very happy with him this season. More to come from the big fella.
Finished the season brilliantly, didn't he? If he had, he had an unlucky start to his career. He had an injury as well. But had he played as consistently as that, he'd have been in the dream team, no question. And I think, yes, his recapture is good. They bought a young under-19 player from London today. Obviously, this again is part of Darryl's trying to bring players on, which he's so
he's
good
got an
at.
eye for a player,
so
hasn't
good at. Yeah, he's seen somebody who's played 9 games for Hemel Stags in League One on loan from the Broncos. He's been good in the Broncos under-19s and thinks he can do a job. He's a big strapping fella. We've seen Lamatazi today has gone back to Salford. Ian Thornley's gone to Catalan. It's been a big day today for player movement. Zach Hardacre will know by the end of the week where he's going. His agent saying a deal's done, but we don't know yet exactly.
What's your gut feeling then? What's your gut feeling?
It's interesting. I think it does perhaps boil down to what Cass and Denny Solomona come up with. It may well be that Cass don't want to sell him. It could be that the player wants to leave, in which case Cass would be right to cash in. Now, what would they spend their money on if they'd lost Luke Dawn and Denny Solomona, and they've got Greg Eden to come in? I still think he's more of a winger than a fullback. So they're looking for a top-class fullback to replace Luke Dawn. They've got some money in the bank. Zach Hardacre lives on their doorstep. Put 2 and 2 together, get 6. If I was Cass and was going to lose Solomon, I'd seriously think about bringing in Hardacre. Can you imagine Zach Hardacre running off Luke Gale? I think that would give them something. The size of the pitch at the Jungle as well. His defensive capability would be even more impressive. Less ground to cover, so he'd be almost impossible to get past. And he needs a challenge now. He's sort of had the taste of the big time. He's been the man of steel. It hasn't gone quite right for him. So you get him in the frame of mind where he wants to prove something again. That would be a big signing.
It would be indeed. Scotty, Hardacre down at Cass, can you see that one happening?
Well, it all depends with Zach, to be honest with you, what sort of hunger he's got left. We all know exactly the season, what he had the season before last, absolutely outstanding, and this year's been a nightmare for the kids, so it all depends what he's like mentally, and it all Zach, it depends where he wants to go. Certainly the style of coach, what Darryl Powell is, it'll suit his style of player, won't it? And on his day, outstanding fullback, but it's got a bit of form back in Penrith, but still, it's all about Zach, I would say, how much he wants it anymore. It's as simple as that. So he can only answer that question. But if he's going to be a side where he's going to excel again, then playing under Darryl Powell, I can't think of anybody better than down at Castleford.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, at Wigan, we saw Matty Smith, Phil, making the move back to St Helens. Surprised by that one?
No, because I think we all know that Luke Walsh has said his goodbyes to the players at St Helens. He's heading back to Australia, and I think, again, Matty Smith's a St Helens lad. He hasn't ever quite fulfilled his potential with his hometown club. He was let go very young, and then he came back and did a job for them on loan in a grand final. But I think to end his career with his hometown club, it's a like-for-like replacement, so I can see why Saints would have gone after him. They've also signed Adam Walker today from Hull KR. I presume he's the replacement for Tarzi, who's going back to Salford.
What did we make of the Hull KR comments about Walker?
In many respects, I thought they were quite justified. He went through a difficult period, and I think the club did support him. And whilst it's hard to ask a player who's got ambition and potential to play in the Championship, there is also a degree of loyalty that the club helped him out of a difficult situation. Now, I don't know if that's come down to an argument over money or personality, but it seemed to me as though Hull KR wanted him to stay. and before they got the chance of doing a full negotiation, I think his agent had decided that it was better for him to leave. So a bit of acrimony there it'd be interesting when they get to play each other again. Obviously, it won't be this season unless it's in the Cup. Scottish international, so we should see Adam in the Four Nations. Every player deserves to play at the top level, so I don't think you can deny them the opportunity to do that. But loyalty should always be a bit of a two-way street.
Scully, Matty Smith, what do you make of that?
I find it a strange one, to be honest with you, because he hasn't got any pace, and again, just the way that Sid Talent has signed the big guy from.
Yeah, I'd turn your phone off, Scully, when you come on the radio. That's generally. We're Australia for it as well, to be honest with you. But anyway, no, the big guy Douglas, the signing from there, and and Matty Smith, he's not the quickest to stand upstairs, scrum out. So I guess they're looking to get him around the field with Luke Walsh. I don't know, but I'll just check there with Phil. I don't know if he's ready to cook his butt, to be honest. But you talk about loyalty. I tell you what, Mr. Hudson doesn't look at that, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, the players' contracts, they were cancelled, the Super League contracts were gone. What Walker's, I know exactly, we know exactly what Walker did or went through, 12, 18 months ago, but it's quite simple. There's no loyalty nowadays. The kid's ambitious, and I think he had every right to leave Ulster Rovers, to be honest with you. Interesting. I have to say, as much as I put the boot in on Hull KR when they got relegated, I think how they've responded to that relegation has been first class. They've come out, they've been aggressive with a ticket marketing plan. They've signed up Sean Lunt's re-sign. They've signed up one or two more as well. I think they're going about it the right way. They've had a kick in the teeth.
Mark, they've no choice. They can't just sit on the backside and start moping and feeling sorry for themselves. They've got to do. It's as simple as that. They can't just expect coming to say, oh, okay, you got relegated, we'll give you this amount of money. You only get supporters saying, okay, then, we haven't done very well, but, I want to see the season ticket. No, they've got to do it because it's quite simple. They've been relegated. The champions are in there for another 12 months. I guess with the way the players are re-signing, you would certainly have them as favourites to maybe come straight back up. But don't have it simply for Ulster Rovers. They're in this mess. It's quite simple. They're in this mess. Don't blame the directors. Okay, Peacock came back as a player, so you could put responsibility because they came back as a player. But it's quite simple here. Ulster Rovers are in this mess because the players haven't been good enough week in and week out.
Fair enough.
What I do think is important, just riding on the back of that, is that they've re-signed the likes of Matty Marsh and George Lawler, because if they are going to get out of this and they are going to build for the future, it's not necessarily around Nick Scruton, who'll do them a job to get them out of the Championship. It's around those young kids, and I think to re-sign them, and I believe there were a couple of clubs looking at their more talented juniors, that's actually a really important gesture of intent, and I think that's why the Hull KR fans have got round them. Yes, Sean Lunt is a big signing in terms of he's probably too good to play in the Championship, but it's not about next year. It's also about building the things they didn't have when they slipped out. So Thomas Minns, again, is a good re-signing for them. Ian Thornley, on the other hand, is a really good signing for Catalan, I think, because, again, his Wigan background would tell you that he's already of a Super League calibre. I think that's the important thing that Hull KR have done, is secure some of their most promising youngsters.
It is indeed. We talk about aggressive marketing. What about Huddersfield Giants? They've got their new pricing policy, the new Stone Age. They move it to Friday nights. Is that a gamble, or what do you reckon of that, Phil?
I'm not a huge fan of underpricing your product. I think Bradford got caught with that a couple of times as well. The danger is that you don't build a core of support. You need actually people to pay the full price. You're selling the idea that they're shopping at Waitrose at oldie prices.
To be fair to that, though, mate, they have tried anything and everything, haven't they?
Absolutely.
It's not worked.
I don't know what the answer is for Huddersfield, because their record in Super League over the last 3 or 4 years has been as good, if not better, than most clubs throughout the regular rounds of the season. They've never been a team that you would have called dour in the way that they played. It'd be interesting to see who is there next year. It's all very well putting out season tickets at £99 and £190, but is Danny Brough going to be there? Is Earl Crabtree going to be there? If they're not, who are they bringing in? Do they need to sign Zach Hardacre as a gesture of intent? Scott Griggs has gone to Wakefield. There is a case for saying that there is a full-back spot available at Huddersfield. Does that say we want to be in the big? I think it's more about who you sign than the price of your season tickets at this stage of the season. Again, I just don't like undervaluing Rugby League. I think we have a fantastic product. They're one of the top 12 teams that produce this product. There should be a premium on that. Although, again, you know the way it works at Bradford City much better than I do, and they seem to have benefited from just getting a lot of people in the stadium. My worry for Huddersfield is the same people who would have bought the tickets will buy a cheaper ticket, and they won't get many more people there. They'll just have less income. But good luck to them on it.
Yeah, what they've done at Bradford is they've made it fashionable for young kids to go watch the football again. I've got a teenage son, all his mates now, they've all got season tickets. It's a fashionable thing to go every Saturday and watch the team.
But
and
they've got a good product.
They've bought a layer of fans now, and they'll build on that.
But would they be turning up if they weren't second in the division and playing attractive football?
Yes, because they started it when they were in the bottom reaches of League Two. So yes, they did. I remember the first game Jack went to, they got beat 3-0 by Accrington Stanley. The first thing he said is, "Wow, great, Dad, when are we coming back?" And I thought, I am committing this child to a life of misery here, but he loves it, and he goes every week with his
And I guess
granddad.
Huddersfield want the same thing, but I do think their recruitment at this stage is probably more important than the ticket price, because one of the things we all said last year was their squad was too thin. We know that they're going to be letting some of their players go. Who are they going to be replacing them with?
The new Stone Age, Scully, are you a fan, or is it more Barney Rubble than Fred Flintstone?
We're talking about Huddersfield now, are we?
Yeah, we are, yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they tried everything, haven't they? Why have they tried Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights playing? Because it's quite simple. The Huddersfield fans that don't like being at, what do we call it nowadays, the John Smith or the McAlpine or whatever they call it, they're still chanting Fartown. They're still chanting Fartown, Fartown, Fartown. So they're pretty hard to please. And as Phil has touched on there, I don't really think it does matter what sort of tickets and what sort of prices they do it. We just don't want to go there. Simple as that.
I remember they were chanting your name a few weeks ago, weren't they, them ladies? They sounded like they'd been in the corporate and had too much to drink. Maybe that's where they need to go, get a few more in the bar.
Well, I'll tell you what, stick some scoey heads around the ground as well, so get a good atmosphere, because the ladies certainly gave a great atmosphere. I'll tell you what, they're all bad dancers as well, to be honest with you. Pretty good dancers.
We heard the best of you. Well, it was the best of us, actually, wasn't it, from the games? But to be fair, there was a lot of you. Talk of Greg Minikin being an octopus, and school science lessons, and being in the plasticine class, and singing and dancing. You've had quite a good season, haven't you, really?
I thought, to be honest with you was going to leave that while Christmas, everybody could have a bit of a laugh at Christmas time.
Well, we've got that much of it, we've got to get it out now.
Is this a personal assassination on the legend? Is this a personal assassination on the legend? But it's quite simple. Minikin, it is Minikin, isn't it? Yeah, because I get mixed up with a kid at Warefield. There's Minikin, and who's the one at Warefield? Near this...
Tom Johnston.
No, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. But what I said about Minikin was quite simple. If he got the England squad, he would, he would be like an octopus, grow 6 arms and 2 heads and 3 heads and this sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Would he pass all the relevant tests for that?
He wouldn't like, he would let England down, simple as that. And okay, some of the quotes when I come at me, they might be a little bit. Maybe not Rugby League like, but it brings a smile to people's faces, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, you do indeed. You make a lot of people moan and groan as well in the newspaper.
That's all because we're being honest. That's all because we're being honest.
Yeah, well, we're going to go through your England side we'll do it now, actually. Johnny Lomax at fullback, Jermaine McGilvray, Callum Watkins, Mark Percival and Ryan Hall in the backs, Widdop and Gale at half-back, Graham, Hodgson, Hill, Whitehead, Bateman and Burgess in the forwards. On the bench, Clark, George Burgess, Scott Taylor and Stephen Ratchford. You want to tell us why? And then we'll get Phil's thoughts on that.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, when you look at it, Lomax has been in outstanding form. Even all the fullbacks have been, but he can only pick 2, and he's picked Ratchford and Johnny Lomax. But Lomax he plays like a second stand-off on there, so he'll give us variation. McGilvray and Ryan Hall proven at test level, and I don't have an issue with him. Callum Watkins, may not have been the best season when he's had for Leeds, but on his day he's the best centre in Super League. Percival, great centres winger, good creator, good chances when he gets them from there, so I don't have any issues with them backs. Widdop, may have been a little bit disappointing for St George.
George Williams.
No, I just feel as though he's not ready for it yet, to be honest with you, and again, he's just that too indecisive for me, because I think we look Gale there at 7, he'll be the main creator, and Widdop, he's proven it international level from there, so I'm good at him with the experience he's got with NRL. That's what I'm going there with experience with Widdop. And the forward pack, well, I'll tell you what, this forward pack won't get intimidated by New Zealand or Australia. When you look at, say, James Graham, Hodgson, outstanding. He's been in the NRL for his debut season. Chris Hill, Mr. Consistent. And I say Elliot Whitehead, outstanding. John Bateman, as I describe him, is a freak. Simple as that. And then Sam Burgess, the captaincy now. He will absolutely thrive on that, and he will look to rip into both the Kiwis and the Aussies. Also the Scots as well. Don't forget about the Scots. And then Darryl Clark coming off the bench, ideal hooker. George Burgess, he'll rip in. Scott Taylor. Well, a few people might be surprised at that, but I reckon he's ready for it. He will rip in as well. And Stefan Ratchford. The reason why I picked Stefan Ratchford, Mark, is I took note on Saturday, and believe it or not, I do study the game. You know, I just don't come out with silly quotes. So I do study the game. And what the Aussies did, they brought on, is it young Michael Morgan, you know, who's the halfback to Jonathan First at the Cowboys, and they put him on at loose forward. And what he did, he brought a bit more variation. Sitting around the ruck area, took a bit of pressure off the halfbacks there, and I reckon Stefan Ratchford could do that. He could play loose forward, he could play 6 or 7, or maybe at full-back as well if Lomax's not playing there. So I thought it was a great move there by Big Mel. That's why I've got Ratchford in at 17 for that variation.
Phil, would that equate to your 17 for England in the first game of the Four Nations?
Sadly, 16 of them would, yes, because I'd rather argue with him than agree with him, obviously. The only change I would make is I would definitely have George Williams in there. I would have him probably instead of Stefan Ratchford. The thing about Williams is, he's a winner. He's just come out of a grand final win, and I think if you're going to win games against the very best in the world, you've got to have players that have won things. I think it's a mentality thing. The other thing is that last year we tried Williams against New Zealand to give him his head in international rugby, and it's something that we've spoken about all year. How do these people get the experience of taking that huge step up into international rugby league? Well, he served his apprenticeship last year. We won a series with him in that team. He didn't play particularly well, but he experienced for the first time being in that camp, what's expected of you as an international, how you prepare, getting out of the Wigan way and into a different way. And I just think George Williams is perhaps our long-term answer to our half-back issues. I mean, I hope Luke Gale plays. I hope he does himself justice. Luke's 28. You know, he is in last chance saloon. George Williams is 20. He has got the chance to be our long-term half-back solution for not only for the World Cup next year, but for the following World Cup. And I think, again, depending on the combinations, I think Widdup's got a great kicking game. Williams necessarily hasn't so much, so they might complement each other. I have a feeling that there is a chance that Wayne Bennett will obviously use his squad against France. He wants to give a hit out to all those players that haven't played recently to get some air into their lungs. And then his first choice team will be the one that plays New Zealand. I wouldn't be surprised if he picks George Williams ahead of Luke Gale. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but against that New Zealand pack, he may go with the tried and trusted George Williams that's just coming out of a winning grand final, that's confident. He's got some selection dilemmas, which is all we ever wanted. The fact that we are not just naming our halfbacks and saying, oh, it has to be Matty Smith because there's nobody else, so it has to be Gareth Widdup because there really is nobody else. That's great. We've got some choice. And again, going back to variation, I think Williams can cover 6 or 7. Lomax, if he had to, could go into the halves if he really needed to. But what I like about England as more than anything is that centre pairing, because I think Watkins is our equivalent of Greg Inglis, and actually the best thing that could have happened to him is that he hasn't played much in the last month, because the league...
Some would argue Phil, he hasn't played much all season.
No, well, actually, if you look at his contribution all season, the only Leeds player that played in every game, he was doing 30-odd tackles a game. In the 8s, he was back to his best confident try-scoring form. The fact is that he is one of the Leeds players, along with Ryan Hall, that's played virtually non-stop for 6 years. So to have a month off, he's coming into this fresh, and I think Callum Watkins coming in fresh can frighten the Aussies.
Phil, how is Callum Watkins a Greg Inglis?
He could be our Greg Inglis. He's got the size and the physique.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
But that combination of the size of Watkins and the elusiveness of Percival, that makes me think of Keith Senior and Martin Gleeson. And the last time we had a centre pairing that troubled the Aussies on a regular basis...
They're nowhere near Greg Inglis. You know, when you look at Greg Inglis' involvement in games, you won't see Callum Watkins doing that.
I think you will at international level. I think this is the stage that he wants to... What's the best way of getting over a disappointing season? Is to play well against the very best in the world.
I agree.
And he feels fresh because he's had the necessary...
Do you think Callum Watkins will get involved?
Yes.
Like a Greg Inglis does?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, have you been to a training session? Have you seen the trainer already? Because you're telling us something here that I've never seen before, Phil.
No, I think at international level, this is Callum Watkins' time to fulfil the potential that we know he has. When he went into the series last year against New Zealand, I think, was that something like his 36th, 37th and 38th game of the season? He looked exhausted. He could barely do an interview afterwards because he was physically and mentally shattered. He'd gone through all of the emotion of winning a treble, and then he was asked to go up a level and play against New Zealand. And it was demanding, overly demanding. I think on the back of what he's suffered this year, this is redemption against Australia.
So does Greg Inglis.
Yeah, he can.
For South, for Queensland, for Australia.
I think this is Watkins' time to prove that he is the player that we think he can be. And I think he'll absolutely relish coming up against Greg Inglis.
Well, because I tell you what as well, because there was one person last year, it was your mate Peacock actually, and said Callum Watkins is going to be the best centre we've ever produced. Well,
he's got a long way to go.
Well, do we realise how good Neil Fox was? Do we realise how good Eric Ashton was? Yeah. Tell you what, Joe Lyden wasn't a bad centre. I want a bad centre in my day.
No,
he's got a hell of a lot to do, yeah, Phil.
Absolutely. But I think this is the stage. I also think that Wayne Bennett will have looked at what he can do and will have seen his physique and thought, this is a guy that if I can get the ball to him in enough space, he could really damage out wide. How many strike weapons have we got? We haven't got too many. We've got some really talented players, but how many strike players have we got?
What I'm saying, one thing for sure, I'm not denying that he's a strike player. I'm not denying he's a good player, but I'll tell you what, boy oh boy, he's not Greg English.
I think that's the battle I'm looking forward to more than any other in this Four Nations.
Interesting.
Interesting. Not often you're lost for words there, Scoy, but you were a bit shocked by that one. Be interesting to see if it can get that kind of link up with Luke Gale, maybe, that, we've seen Jake Webster have this season.
Yeah, and I think, again, depending on which of the second row was Elliot Whitehead or John Bateman playing on that side, I think they've both been in fabulous form this year. If we can get even Brett Ferris, who we haven't mentioned yet, who probably will be one of the fringe players, but Ferris and Watkins already have an understanding. So you might want to even cultivate that. I suspect Ferris and Watkins might play against France, and be very interesting to see if they dominate. But all Wayne Bennett will be doing, I don't think he's the sort of coach that gives out game plans. If you listen to him interviewed after matches and ask him for his analysis of how his team played, it's not about what I told them to do. I gave them the tools to do what they saw best to do, the way that Scoey coaches. Only Wayne Bennett's record's just slightly different. And
just think, Scoey, all those years ago, if you'd actually listened to what Wayne Bennett said, instead of dreaming of having a beer or going out for a pint, whatever you were doing at that time, you might have been a
had the golden opportunity.
Well. Listen, I did listen to what he did, but I got fed up by 7:30 and then had to go to bed at 8. And he talked about having a beer. I only had 6 tins in 10 days. No, it's quite...
They were all out of Wayne Bennett's fridge, that was the problem.
But, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you just play what you see and go out there and enjoy yourself.
But I also think Wayne is astute enough to see that if Watkins is the guy that is going to get through that Australian line, which looked fantastic against New Zealand, defensively they were magnificent. And in players like, we haven't spoken enough about Trent Merrin, because we barely know him over here, but he was fantastic at loose forward with his offloads. And Aaron Woods is still to come back into that pack. But I think Bennett will be saying, well, where do we score points? How do we actually get over the Australians? Rather than just, running the ball one up and making it easy for the defence, how do we get a bit of footwork? Well, that might be Percival on the edges, but if we can get an offload, who's the best person to capitalise on that? I do think it's the physique and the speed of Watkins. Watkins is the fastest man in the Leeds team.
Scoey's stunned into silence. We will find out what happens. I think I would have Brett Ferris in there. I don't think they'll have a back on the bench. I think they'll go with Ferris.
Why would you have Ferris for the season he's had at Leeds?
Ferris, was he not player of the series last year against New Zealand? He was outstanding. I actually think when I've watched Leeds, Ferris, obviously he's been standout, but he's done all right in a team that I think has underperformed hugely this season.
So who would you take out there then?
Probably Ratchford. I think Ratchford will miss out. I'm not sure off the bench what he's going to add.
You see, the way, because I think we'll beat New Zealand anyway, but the way we're going to beat Australia is quite simple. We've got to vary as players. We've got to be asking questions. And I'll agree, with Watkins, if he puts it in space, but what we're going to be trying to do with Watkins is simple. Let's give him the ball 70 metres away, 60 metres away. Let's give him a chance. Put him into a bit of space and then see if he can use that footwork and use that speed what he's got. But there's no point trying to use him 20, 25 metres out, because simple, the Aussies defence will be far too strong. But will Wayne Bennett play that sort of game plan? I'm not so sure.
Oh, we'll find out. Let us know on Twitter at RLonRY. It's the rugby season not over yet. The internationals coming thick and fast. You'll have been touting for the Jamaica job. What, you did Glenn Morrison beat you to it, Scully? What happened there? You're normally good for anywhere that looks remotely nice. Would be interesting.
Do you know why? Because we're playing at Wakefield. That's why I don't want it. If we're playing in Kingstown or which parts of Jamaica? The Kingstown and is it the Barbados? Somewhere like that. Yeah. If it was in there, I'd put him for it. But it's only at Wakefield, so you can have that gig at Wakefield, Glenn.
Fair enough. We're talking a little bit more about Wakefield in the second hour of our show tonight. We are out and about. We're in Phil's magnificent bookshop. Let's ask Phil about his bookshop. Give him the microphone, Scully. Very nice shop you've got here.
That's kind of you.
Paul Cooke with us tonight, going to be joining us. He's signing some copies of his book. What did you make of his book? Have you had a chance to read it?
Yeah, I loved it. And again, I like it because it's not just a chronology of his rugby career. There's no great match detail in it. It's more to do with how he felt, what was happening. It's incredibly honest. Behind the scenes, what he was thinking, how he was treated. I think that's the kind of book that we all want to read. And you know, I go back to last Monday, the fact that we couldn't get the man here on the air because he was so captivated. And that wasn't starting at the beginning, that was just picking it up and opening it at random. I think it is a fabulous read. I think we need to pay credit to the other gentleman who's here signing the book who co-wrote it. That's Adrian Durham. I think the research that he's done, speaking to other people, lends an extra level on it. So it's not just Paul's story. It's a key element in his story. Let's go and speak to the people that were involved. So obviously, I'm biased because I think people should buy books and books on rugby league, but this is one of the best autobiographies that has come out for quite a while.
Yeah, and we've just been brought to my attention. I missed this one. Lizzie Jones named as Woman of the Year.
She has.
That's good news, isn't it?
Excellent. Great for the sport. Wonderful ambassador. Tireless worker on getting defibrillators out to community clubs and obviously the semi-professional clubs, which is absolutely vital. How she managed to cope with the tragedy that befell her is a lesson for all of us. I think she enormous dignity. She's now performed at some major events for Rugby League, which I think we're extremely grateful for, and it's one of the ultimate stories of redemption. It shows the sport in a fabulous light because everybody rallied round to help where they could. You can never replace, but you can offer your support, and it absolutely fabulous that she gets the national recognition. I would hope that in terms of international rugby league, our team will do likewise in the Four Nations.
Yeah, indeed. We will hear more. Scotty, just quickly, we'll do that in a minute. Your thoughts, Lizzie Jones, just quickly before the news.
All sensational, as I said with Lizzie. You know, from my point of view, she should be the marketing person for Rugby League, the face of Rugby League, personality, and I say well done to her. Outstanding individual.
Yeah, well done indeed. That's the first hour flown by. Just a one blip with the technology. Sadly, I can still see Scotty at this end. I
can see him as well.
Do something about that. We'll hand back to Richard in the studio and we'll get the news at 7. Richard.
Yeah, cheers, Mark. I can see him as well at the moment. I must point out, though, if you're still listening, talking about coaching Jamaica if they play in Barbados. Barbados is
It's a different company. Country.
4 3/4 hour flight from Jamaica is Barbados. So I don't think they'll be sending him to coach there. Or maybe they will be, actually, in fairness.
Proper sport at 6. Rugby League on Radio Yorkshire. More games than any other radio station. Now that's what I call unrivalled.
Yeah, and maybe even more in 2017. Who knows? We are asking you plenty of questions on Twitter at RLonRY if you want to get in touch with us. Your thoughts on the world of Rugby League in 2016. What do you expect to happen in 2017? What do you think of Magic Weekend? What do you think of Huddersfield moving their games to Fridays? All that and more at RLonRY. It's Richard Short here in the studio, but live out in the wild, Mark Wilson is at Philip Howard Books. Where everyone...
I am indeed,
what's Tom Maguire? I've just seen Tom Maguire eating.
Here, great hospitality, by the way. Tea, cakes, the ones that we could prize out of Scully's tight grasp here. We'll get him on air in just a minute when he's finished filling his chops. And he had his phone on, of course, so he'll be fine for that. Half his match fee. If you want to get in touch tonight, at RLonRY, we're going to be speaking to Paul Cooke very, very shortly indeed. He's here, of course, signing copies of his new book, Judas, the story of Paul Cooke, by Paul Cooke and Adrian Durham. And we were talking about Wayne Bennett earlier on, Scully, and the Keighley Cougars, Friday the 27th of October. They've got a chance to have a chat with him, comedian and a meal, £35 a ticket. So I guess you can get details of that on the Keighley Cougars website.
Yep, you can indeed. So it'll be a great night. And, well, Wayne doesn't really talk a lot, so it'll be a great experience for the people who go down there at Keighley. So have a great night.
We're going to talk to Paul about his book in a minute and go into some more of the finer detail about what's in there, and a lot of it you can relate to because, of course, you were, called by my good self Judas on many occasions. But he's beaten you to it. He's got the book now.
Yeah, it is, and I say, as I was talking earlier, and I can relate to quite a few things in there, especially, at times where the director's trying to turn it on. You knew exactly what they did with Cooke, and they did it with myself, telling lies and then telling stories to the Daily Mail as though it's all your fault. Then also to, I say, Cooke from a point of view with a coach with Justin Morgan, where I find it quite astonishing where one of your best players, you just totally going against of how good a player he is and how you want him to play, because quite simply, Cooke was their best player. He played on the left-hand side and a creative player, but also as well from Brian Noble's point of view, which I read, and I chuckled to myself because, Cooke didn't get picked because, unlike a lot of us in my day, and, we liked a couple of beers and a bit of a pint, but it didn't stop us playing. And one thing for sure what you got with Paul Cooke is a quality rugby league play. And how he never played for Great Britain, I don't know, because it was simple. We've not had a proper half-back since myself and Andy Gregory. Then we tried turning second rowers loose forwards into number sixes, and he was ideal. He was ideal to be playing half-back then. And Brian Noble's excuse was, well, we looked into Cooke off the field, and we heard that he liked a pint, and sometimes he may not have done the right thing. So what? So what does that mean? And also exactly the same with Lee Briers, because I can reassure you, Mark, right? Australians have had one of the best players that's ever played the game. And most people say, as well, maybe the best player ever, in Andrew Johns. I tell you what, the Aussies never dropped Andrew Johns, didn't they? Andrew Johns absolutely loved a schooner or two. Not just one or two. They were on it for days on end. But how good a player was Andrew Johns? And the way that Paul Cooke got treated by coaches, I find it absolutely laughable, because a quality player what he was, and one thing for sure, what Great Britain needed at the time was that creativity. And certainly, I'm not saying we may have not maybe won the Ashes, but we would have got a hell of a lot closer if Cooke and Lee Briers would have been the half-back partners.
Obviously, you get a lot of... You create a lot of chat, and people will criticise you. We see that in the paper, people pulling apart your opinions, but they're your opinions, and people can have their opinion on what you've got to say.
Absolutely.
But how hard was it, when I jokingly call you Judas and you left, and people don't know the real what happened, and how hard is it for you? Because that's obviously what's behind Paul's book, but how hard was it for you when you left and people were calling you this, that and the other, when really, Well, it's very hard, because it's quite simple, when you look at the two directors, certainly in Cooke's book, Inheritance and James Rule, they're just told blatant lies. It's simple as that. And then also too, the two directors who was in charge of the club when I was there, in Peter Darley. Well, Mark, believe it or not, Peter Darley was an accountant. He was the vice chairman. And after one game on the Sunday afternoon we used to play. I think you want to be careful.
No,
I know what you're going to say.
No, it's simple. And everybody knew it. He took the gate takings home with him, and they got pinched out of his car. Well, I think I got blamed for that, to be honest with you. Then also as well, the money what the club got for myself and Lee Crooks. It's like Cooke will tell you, told everybody in his book. It was all about, if they'd got in right with the testament, he wouldn't have left. Well, if the directors wouldn't have told us lies and said, well, there's no more money for you, because me and Lee Crooks, we signed a contract for 3 years, £10,000 a year, and said there's no more money, you're the two best players, that's all we can give you. 2 weeks down the line, they go sign a big, fat Welsh Rugby Union player called Gary Pearce for 20 grand. So we go back knocking on the door and saying, listen, you told us lies, and all we wanted was 5 grand extra, 50 grand a piece, but the club was going nowhere. They'd lost the ambition, they had to sell 2 of the assets, and me and Crooks were the assets, and in a nutshell, they got £323,000 for us two, right, which want a profit after they paid us our contract and all this sort of thing to sign us as kids. They made a profit around about £278,000, so that's not bad. But also as well, what the old fans don't realise and what they don't know is that money didn't go back into the club. The chairman at the time, he went into his business. So, who was the Judas? It certainly wasn't Scully.
Interesting stuff. Phil, obviously we're in your bookshop here, you read a lot of books. What was it that stood out about Paul's book for you?
Just the honesty.
It's a different one.
Just the honesty, I think, because it would have been very easy to just apportion blame on other people, but I think there's a lot of taking responsibility for his own actions. I think the fact that so little is written about some key events in his career shows that there's things other than just what goes on the field that's important, and it's coming to terms with yourself and finding out who you are and mistakes that you make along the way. The headline stuff is obviously not being granted a testimonial, scandalous. I still think the most interesting thing is where was Paul's best position? Because again, I always thought he was the absolutely archetypal loose forward. Tall, had the ball skills, could tackle in the middle of the field or spread the ball wide if needed. I'm not sure any club made the best of him. I would have certainly looked to have given him even more responsibility, because I think he would have thrived on that, rather than just say, you're a bit of a maverick, we don't know how to handle you, so we'll keep you on the outside a little bit. I'd have had him right in the centre saying, right, well, everything revolves around you. You're the most talented player we've got. We're going to build a team around that. And all of that, I think, is just part of this story that, again, is so, I think it's so revealing because 10 years has passed. And to then get the truth after such a long period of time makes it such a compelling read.
I think also as well with Cooke, it's very much like myself from a point of view where coaches didn't tell me how to play the game. What Cooke did was like me when I was playing in the centre. I watched the likes of Warren Lewis and I watched the likes of Sterling and Brett Kenny and what they did. Unfortunately, I was watching them when I was on the opposition for Great Britain, to be honest with you. But when I'm reading Cooke's book and he's watching Jason Smith there at Hull and he's watching how players position themselves, because when you're a half-back, there's 18 minutes to play, right? You don't need to be involved in every set of play. You're plotting. I keep using this word. You're plotting. You're looking for this bit of vision. You're looking for this bit of awareness. And also, too, I read the comment what Derek Beaumont said about him as well. He's working with Ridyard, and asking Ridyard, well, what did you do that for? If you think it's on, go for it. But the way that Cooke was as a player, he played with that vision. And he played with that awareness, which we didn't have at international level. And I say it's an absolute joke how he and Breezy, okay, all right, they like to pint, so what? So what? They could play Rugby League, and we totally missed out on two quality halfbacks. But what I do certainly like about him, and certainly when I listen to him talk, and then certainly how Lee are playing, he's letting the players and play what they see. I'm sure he's picking up on a little bit where I say, maybe at times being a little bit more patient, but play what you see and don't be frightened. Don't be frightened to go out there and try things. And if it doesn't work once, go again. And if it doesn't work twice, go again, because I can reassure you, it will work. I'm
sure you'll have enjoyed the line where Paul said he was sort of talking in a video session. I think it might have been at Lee with Ridyard when they must have said, why didn't you do that? Yeah. He said the play wasn't on, and Paul said, when I go to the pub, if there's no Carlsberg, I'll still have a beer. There's still something there.
Exactly. That's what I read there, and it's rightly so, because play what you see. And that's exactly what Cooke did as a player, and I'm sure that's what he's encouraging. Well, you can see that really anyway, can't you? The way they destroyed Huddersfield in that first half, you could see that. It's that freedom of expression and playing with that vision and awareness. And I say the way that Cooke was with Justin Morgan and some of the coaches there to play what you see. I would have said with Doug Lawton, it was quite simple. Doug Lawton used to say to me, listen, don't be chipping over the top. The only thing that goes with chips is fish. And I used to say, well, listen, I like fish and I like chips, so you can get lost. You know what I mean? For coaches trying to take something away from you. And what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing about Paul, he's encouraging how the game should be played and play from any part of the field. If you're 60, 70 out, if you see something, go for it. As long as you as a halfback communicate with your centre, he communicates with his winger, that we've created this 3-on-2. Go for it, and I like the way he's coaching.
Very good. Well, let's hear from him. Paul, welcome along to Radio Yorkshire. Thanks for joining us. Great book, by the way. We've been lucky enough to have a read already. I guess this has been an emotional experience for you, because there's reasons behind why the book even came about.
Yeah, the reasons behind that are my mum. Plain and simple. She made me promise to write the autobiography, and without that promise, the book would never have been written. It's not for any other reason. It's not financial. It's not because I need to get it off my chest. It's simply to defend the one woman who defended me to her dying day, and give a little bit back to her.
and obviously for people that don't know your story, your mum has sadly passed away.
Yeah.
How important was it that you got this book right because of the importance of it to you?
Yeah, massively important. I first met Adrian just a couple of months after Mum had passed away in 2011, and legally we was stuck until minimum of 2013. So the stars didn't quite align for us with our work commitments until probably about 14 months ago, when we began really working hard on the book. And it was really important that, as you said, it was right. It was important that you only get one shot at it, and it'll be the only book I release, I imagine. So it was really important that myself and Adrian made sure everything was right in the book.
Phil spoke earlier about the honesty. You give yourself a bit of a kicking in it at times, don't you? There's no hiding behind it, making excuses. You're quite brutal and down to the point. You made mistakes, you acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think it was really important, again, that it's not a sob story. It's not an ask for sympathy or empathy. It's basically how I was feeling at the time. And also, what was really important to me and Adrian was how other people felt as well. And mixing it up that way, how my dad felt. My mum couldn't answer. The part with my dad in the book where he says he wanted to punch me, he sent me a text after. He didn't want to contribute that part to the book. I thought it was really important that he did. Richard Agars, I think Adrian thinks that that's really brutal, but it's just honest from Richard. I understand his points. Same with Peter Sharp, Justin Morgan the same. I didn't really see eye to eye with him, but I understand his points as a coach. Still think he's been the best coach at Hull Kingston Rovers, and some of his methods are still used. I pick up little bits from everybody, so I think it's really important that there wasn't just honesty from me, but there was honesty from everybody else, and how they felt at the time of the move, and how they felt while I was at Hull Kingston Rovers, and how they feel now.
And looking at it, I mean, this is a bit, again, for anyone that's not going to do advise, you come to Phil's bookshop especially to buy it, because obviously he's got plenty of copies in, but I like it how, like you said, through every story, we get almost a running commentary from the people involved, be it yourself or be it your dad or the managers and coaches involved. Was that Adrian's idea? Was that your idea? How did that bit come about?
Well, the ultimate idea of the book was honesty, and that meant honesty from me, and it meant honesty from everybody else. So I think you're probably best off asking Adrian that. He put the book together. Listen, it's my story, it's what happened to me in my life, it's how I felt, it's how other people felt, but he put the meat on the bones of the story and put it into book format, and did a remarkable job with that. I think, when you read the book, it flows easily. It breaks up with other people's comments as well. And I'm maybe biased on it, but I find it quite an easy read. I'm a bit like Gary, I don't read very often, and if something flows for me, I don't put it down, and I want to find out what happens next, and the book's a little bit like that, even though I lived it.
You did indeed, and you had to endure the time in the book name Judas. I give Scory a bit of stick that he left Hull in controversial circumstances, but your story was, at the time, I remember, and I don't often name check the BBC on here, but I remember, because Bradford played at the KC the weekend the story broke, and we had it on the way home. We had Gwilym on, and Gwilym was getting absolutely battered, because he said you were going to join Hull KR. The fans didn't like it one bit, did they?
No, understandably so. I think we had a decent team at the time. We'd just won the cup. We'd just made the grand final. We was on sort of the crest of a wave, and I felt that I was quite important to that. I told the board so upon resigning that Monday. So it was a difficult time for everybody. I think when the story broke, it was broken by somebody on the inside that wanted to put a bit of pressure on me to make a decision. Gwilym put his neck on the line along with David Burns, and I don't think either of them know how, up until what sort of last minute it was that I decided to leave and resign from the club, and how easily it probably could have been resolved up until the 11th hour. So they'd have both been out of a job, him and David Burns, if the club would have actually picked up the phone or knocked on my door and spoke to me about the issue.
I say as well, mate, to be honest with you, as I've mentioned regarding yourself and Lee Brea, certainly from a Great Britain point of view, and I still find it laughable with Brian Noble. And did he ever speak to you? When I wondered, he phoned you up and say, "Listen, Cookie, you are good enough to play international football, but you like a pint." How does that stand?
No, and listen, Brian's input's important because it gives a perspective as the coach at the time. I didn't find it great because the incident with Sean Long, when he took Sean Long away and he drinks Baileys on the aeroplane, and then he goes home, and JP mentions it in his book, or Adrian Morley mentioned it in their book about it being disrespectful, and I'm not sure how I'd have been if I'd have been on that tour. I feel more sorry for Lee Breeze. I think he was a maverick, and he was sensational for Warrington. Time after time, he destroyed teams and was one of the most creative players in the Super League at the time. And I find it a travesty that, to use one of Wayne Bennett's quotes, when you carry on, you do the same things regular, you get the same results, and we got the same results for many years against the Aussies and the Kiwis during that time, and we picked the same players, and we didn't do anything different. If you do what you always do, you get what you always get, and we did do back then. Nobody ever spoke to me about my lifestyle, other than the people in the book and that I mentioned. Nobody from the Great Britain camp or nobody phoned me up and said you need to sort this out or that out to be able to play international football. But obviously that's not their job. Their job is to pick professional players and to pick on what they feel necessary. So his input was really important. Brian's input was important, but I didn't find it overly giving with regards to the incident on the aeroplane for Sean Long.
Also, I find it absolutely astonishing because I know Andrew Johns pretty well, and I'm sure you've heard about Johns, and he absolutely loved the beer, and he was absolutely crazy, to be honest with you, but I'm still astonished that nobody didn't even, because in sport nowadays, Cooke, I'm sure you pick it up yourself, is man management, and absolutely astonished that he just didn't, give you a phone call, he went over for a coffee and say, hey, listen, Cooke, I've heard this about you and heard this, but quite simple. You can play, but if I ask you to do A, B, C and D, you would have done surely, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Put like Great Britain show. I'm not saying go to salt or anything like that, do you know what I mean? But I find it absolutely astonishing that, realistically, if you and Breeze, I'm not saying we would have won the Ashes, but one thing for sure would have been far more attractive, would have been far more better, and give us an opportunity of winning the Test matches.
Yeah, I'd have gone to the ends of the earth. I think that would have been quite simple. I'd have gone to the ends of the earth for a chance to play for Great Britain. I managed to represent England when England wasn't that great at the time. It was, the sort of understudy to the Great Britain, and everybody strived to play for Great Britain. So, I think one journalist, it was, Gavin from 4020 magazine, Gavin Willett, who mentioned, you gloss over the Great Britain and the England side of it, and, debated whether to just leave it out because it's not something that I want to remember. I didn't play for Great Britain, so, there's not a great deal to speak about on it.
Throughout the book, you say about, you never had any regrets about leaving, about why you left. But do you have regrets that you didn't get to play for Great Britain?
Yeah, I think that's down to me. As I said, it's not Brian Noble's or anybody else's job to come to you and ask you to tidy up your lifestyle. That should be a given as a professional player, and there's certainly players within the game now that are still a little bit loose and like a beer, and you've got to manage them players. One interesting comment I've heard from the book, or after the book, is Neil Udgell from OKR, who I get on really well with after we fell out when I left, but, he's never had a problem with a bad player. He's never had a problem getting a bad player out the club. They're easy to get rid of. He said, you get problems with great players that have different vices in life, and it's a real interesting comment that he's never had to get rid of he's always struggled to get rid of a really good player and never had a problem getting rid of a poorer player.
So we often laugh at Scully because he tells us a tale. He got offered 4 times as much money to go to Wigan, big contract, big money, never wait. He said he just couldn't bring himself to leave Leeds. Is that what it was like for you leaving Hull? But was it just a principle that ultimately led you to leave, wasn't it?
Ultimately principle. When you do the finances, I'd have earned more money if I'd have stayed at Hull. I'm pretty sure I would have been given a testimonial, but there was always that doubt that, when David Plummer says in the book that they offered Paul King a massively reduced contract to give him his testimonial, there was always that doubt that in the back of my mind that they could do that to me. They could drop me from what I was on at 75k to 35, and I'd have had to stay because I'd have given up the opportunity to go to OKR at the time, and that was the only club I could go to at the time. That was the only club interested because they was in a little bit of dire straits with regards to the league position and the result the previous week against Bradford in 2007. So they had a great start, but then they'd fallen off the wagon, as was probably going to happen with a newly promoted team. So, I'd make the same decision again. Given the same set of circumstances, I'd make the same decision. It's something that I'm not disproud of. I'm quite honourable, and And I felt that when we agreed the contract in 2005 and it agreed the testimonial, that should be honoured regardless of any other contract. And what David Plummer says about Paul King being offered reduced terms could quite easily have happened to me, and I don't think it had gone from just a 12-month extension. It had probably been another 4 years, so I'd have been on a 7-year contract for a testimonial, which I'd agreed 3 years previous.
I'll just ask Scoey about the fact that not everyone knew his side of his story, and he's still paying the price for that now. People
should write a book, man.
I enjoy it when he gets some stick, but you had it, and the threat of legal action going over you, so you literally couldn't say anything. What's the reaction been like to the book? Because everyone that I know that's read it has said what a great book it is, and wow, we didn't know that. Is that the reaction you're getting now?
Yeah, but it's not the reaction I wanted. It's not. I haven't written it for, as I said, sympathy or empathy or apology, and I've had a lot of it: sympathy, empathy, and apology. It's not. If I'd have been given the same information as the people that shouted from the terraces that they wanted to kill me, then I'd have thought the same as them. You know, there was drip-fed information by people at the club, and, you know, what's said in the book is, you know, Kath says we was never going to sue him, and then 48 hours before the first derby in 2008, when I'm on the back of a 6-month ban, I get a letter off James Rull saying we might still sue you. So I make him hand up between the pair of you. If he's still not speaking and on good terms, you know, one of you says you're never going to sue, and the other one says we still might sue you. So yeah, they could have let us have our say back in 2007 or early 2008, and then everybody could have made their own minds up then. But you know that was never given, and I don't think my dad will forgive them two people for that, because Mum's not here to see the book, and whether the book would have ever been written had they given us the opportunity to speak before now or before 2013, I don't know. I'd have probably spoken before and let people make their own minds up on it anyway. But they never gave us that opportunity, and that's something that, certainly from my dad's side of it and my side of it, they'll be held in contempt with for the rest of their lives.
You mentioned your dad obviously features heavily in the book. What's it been like emotionally for him? Because I guess this has been quite tough for him as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, he don't like chapter 1. Yeah, he don't like the parts about Mum. I think he felt, having spoken to him a couple of weeks ago, that he'd feel more satisfaction from it. But the fact Mum isn't here means that satisfaction from a man who was married to her for all of his life is a little bit less, and that's why he feels the way he feels to the two people in particular that he felt wronged us and we felt wronged us. Yeah, he didn't want to write some parts of it. He didn't want me to know how Mum felt on escapade after escapade off the field. He didn't want me to know how he felt, but he's had fun with it as well, I think. So he mentioned, you know, had I punched you like I wanted to, I'd have found that he was given a kitchen knife and set when they first got married, and this carving knife's about 20 mil thick now, and it was about 8 inches. He said that carving knife would have found its way into my chest had I punched you via your mum's hand, and that's how fierce she was. So he's had a bit of fun with it as well, and we've had a bit of fun with it, and yeah, I'm pretty sure him and Mum would be proud and are proud, but there's still a tinge of disappointment that Mum never got to speak to people like we are now with apology, or, you know, he's done the right thing, or, you know, however they feel.
You haven't, you've put the boot in on certain people, let's be fair. You know, you've told the truth and all the truth. How's that been received? Have you had any comeback or any feedback from maybe the people involved that are on the wrong end of it? No,
maybe that's something that the media could do, you know, ask some questions, because I still don't know the answers to why the club didn't want to meet and speak. You know, and some of the quotes that was mentioned in the book about tell Cookie to get stuffed from people at Hull and there's no more money for him, they never even found out about that. They never asked about it. And the 4 meetings that we asked to set up was never, you know, we never got round the table, and that wasn't my doing. So I can't answer for them people. I can't answer what they was thinking. There's some snippets in the book what they say, you know, we didn't know whether we was going to keep him or not because of his off-field activities, and, you know, Kath says that, and then Richard Agar says there was no chance we was getting rid of him because he was our best player. And so again, they're contradicting each other. You know, we've not sugarcoated anything with regards to what's gone into the book to make me look great. This is the whole truth, as you say, and I probably stuck the boat in more on myself than anybody else, because, you know, I was really disappointed, and I'm really disappointed looking back at the person that I was.
I say as well, mate, because I think you had the same problem wide with Doug Lawn at Leeds and with Justin Morgan, and To be honest with you, I tried getting the sack after 2 weeks because he was no good for me. He was no good for us as a club and the players. And I had him for 4 years. For 4 years, and it was absolute hatred. I hated him. And you saw with Justin Morgan. How did you feel as though you had to get out of bed in the morning and think, well, I've got to go to work for this fella? You know, did you fancy it, or did you just feel as though, well, I've got to do it because it's quite simple. I'm a better person than that.
Well, I didn't hate him. I don't hate anybody.
I can reassure you, I hate
Hate's a strong word.
I hate Doug Lawton. I
didn't understand, and I still probably don't to this day understand who wanted to sign me for Hull Kingston Rovers. I think Neil had a lot to do with it. There was a certain amount of what Neil was doing to stick the boot into Hull FC. He knew how it would affect them. Justin says he wanted to sign me. I think they needed a lift at the time. I think I played well in some games towards the middle and back end of 2007, which helped avoid relegation, along with, you know, the other players within the squad. Let's not think that everything in that book's about avoiding relegation because the St Paul Cup, because it wasn't. I played in a derby at the end of that season where his game plan was one of the best game plans that I've played under, with regards to who was attacking and why, and then why we went the other way and did some things. I certainly still think Justin's been the best coach at Hull Kingston Rovers over the period of time of Super League, and I know they've dropped out now after 9 years, but he's achieved more than anybody else. He put a squad together which was capable of staying up. He put a squad together which was capable of being in the top four and making playoffs, and that's not been done since. So he certainly brought some good stuff to Hull Kingston Rovers. I'm just not sure I was one of them good things. Maybe certain weeks I was, and avoiding relegation helped, and then he moved on from that. I don't understand why he moved me from one side of the field where I was effective to the other. I've got my reasons behind why I think that happened, but you know, I still certainly think he has valid reasons behind it. I just didn't like him.
Well, I find, as I say, because I find it pretty hard, because as I say, with Doug Lawton, you know, first of all, he sacked me as captain, and then it comes to a stage where instead of being on the team photograph, you're on the front, you're on the back of the corner. I'm thinking, well, this ain't going to work. But as I say, he tried changing my style of play. He put me from number 6 to number 7, and I couldn't even put the ball in the scrum and all this stuff. It was just a purpose and a job satisfaction for him to try and realistically get you away from the club. But if he'd have been honest with me, then I say I would have gone to Wigan. It would have brought my heart, to be honest with you, for me to go in the away dressing room and then set up tries and score tries, and he was in the home dugout. But again, with Justin Morgan, though, Paul, as you mentioned there, from you as a player, playing on the left-hand side, your creativity, the understanding, and from your book as I read it, because I knew how this was at Leeds with Doug Lawton bringing all his cronies in and getting them on his side, i.e. with the Australian contingent, surely that didn't sit well with you, because quite clearly you were the best player at Hull Kingston Rovers and the most effective player, and moving you to the right-hand side, thinking, well, why do you want to go work with the guy?
I agree, and that's how it got in the end. I think it got to the point where, I think Dad mentions I touched the ball twice in an half of football, and one of them was off an error for London where you scoop it up and pass to someone, and it got to the point where what was the point in me being at work, and what was the point in me being at the club? I'm not sure whose decision it was to have me back at the club at the time. When they told me I'd never play again, I got into great shape and was ready to leave and possibly go back to Hull FC at the time, and that was quite sharply stopped by somebody above, I believe. I don't think it was just his decision. I don't think he's the type of bloke that, having shouted and screamed that he'll never play for the club again without somebody above telling him so, that decision had to be made. So it was a difficult time. It was a difficult time because I wanted to just go out and play, and I was one of them players that just wanted to go out and play, and as you say, I encourage that now with the players that are under me. But I said, you know, and again, I'm not defending Justin in any way, but I do understand some of his reasons as well as a coach.
I find I can't understand that, because, as I say, with Lawton, some of the coaches I played, like Phil Larder said about me, believe it or not, Cooke, he just said, well, I can't understand what all the fuss is about this Schofield, because all he does is score tries. And he never picked for the World Cup team in '95 due to influence from the one of Maurice Lindsay. So I just, because it'll be over this year, wanted just.
I'm not sure. I don't want to try and score it.
I'm not. But I say, even with Brian Noble and Justin Morgan, I would find it pretty hard. But what I've got to say is, though, I've read the part where you're on the bike. I'll tell you what, you're looking fit, mate. Is that what the league players are doing? Are they getting on their bikes?
Listen,
Because you're looking pretty fit, I'll tell you.
I'm just pulling up floors and painting walls at the minute and trying to get things in order at home before I go back to Leeds to work. So I'm sweating a lot, trying to move things around and pick up laminate flooring. But listen, the players at Lee have been fantastic with me. They've gone over and above what I've asked them to do, and it's paid dividends for them and that club. And Derek and Neil and Paul Anderson, who was there before me, done a magnificent job in putting the structures in place to get promoted into Super League. And the job now for us is to avoid the middle eights.
Well, you're doing a great job for coaching, and I'm sure, as I've mentioned with Ridyard, what you've seen there in the way Lee are playing, Paul. So I guess what you have learned is certainly the rubbish man management from Justin Morgan to yourself, from Brian Noble and a few other people. You've learned from there, and I'm sure your man management is quite... All right, you'll give some players a kick up the backside when it deserves, but the arm around as well. But surely that will be the most important factor, what you've learned coming into with the man management.
You pick up things off different coaches, so you don't only learn what to do, you learn what not to do as well at times. And I've picked up from a lot of good coaches, some good habits, some bad habits, some things that they maybe would change. I speak a lot to other coaches, try and get to other Leicester Tigers, I've been down there with Richard Cockrell and Aaron Major, and I'd look at how they do things, and I'm trying to pick up bits from everybody. Just on the Ridyard thing, I hammered them the first week that I got there. I hammered the senior players, and Riddy wasn't playing at the time, and he kept kicking stones. It's an expression that I use quite a bit, where you kick stones around the place and you mope around the place. And we've brought in Travis Burns. Why have we done that? We've brought in other players. Why are we doing that? I'm better than them. And ultimately, the question to Martin was, what are you doing to get in the team? Please tell me what you're doing to get in this team, and what you're going to continue to do to get in this team. I still think he's the best in our group at picking a pass. He's smart. He's not quick, he's slow, he plays the game at his pace, he fixes and drags players, and I see a lot of me in him, and the Jason Smith sort of influence, where you can put it onto players. The video session where you mentioned drinking, I sort of have a laugh and joke in video at times when there's a time for a laugh and a joke, and I wanted the players to know that I'm fun with it as well. I can take the mickey out myself, and I think they all understand.
You want to work here, mate, because that's all I get.
I think they all understand that. They've all got the opinion, and rightly so, that I had a drink while I was playing, and they still think I'm a bit of a drinker. But just asking them that question: why have you gone there to play this player? Why didn't you play the player you said you was going to play? Because we've gone too far. And they picked another player off the menu, and that's just what that drink meant. It was, if I'm going into a pub and I want to order a Budweiser and it's not on, I'll drink something else because I'm still going to have a beer. Same as they're still going to put a play on. If they get somewhere on the field and it's not on, they'll go the other way with a different play and a different beer. So there was just a bit of fun and crack in that, and I wanted them to let them know that I could take the mickey out myself as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to laugh at that now, because Cooke is just saying there he's going to see different coaches and he's learning this and he's learning that. Well, I went to go see Wayne Bennett in '98 when I just took over Huddersfield, and I went there for 10 days, and to be honest with you, I was bored to death. That's why I'm working that's why I'm now working for Radio Yorkshire, and you're involved in coaching.
Yeah, true. I'm sure he'll do a great job, Wayne. I'm sure he will.
Yeah. We'll get your thoughts on England in a minute, Paul. I just want to go back to your book, because there's a serious side to it as well, isn't there, regarding yourself? We had the guys on from State of Mind a couple of weeks ago on Radio Yorkshire. It's a big part of the game, isn't it? And you have been quite open with your battles and said that you had a chat with someone that really turned your life around. And was that a big thing, admitting that in the book as well?
No, not particularly, because I think I dealt with it personally anyway. I'd started dealing with it in 2008. Throughout 2009, I'd got on top of it. 2010, I was a different person, and nothing really bothered me from 2009 onwards. Admitting to yourself you've got a problem's the biggest thing. I think people can claim or shout depression as much as they want, because there's no real diagnosis for it, and they can use it to their advantage in sport, and I find that disrespectful to people who are actually depressed. Admitting to yourself you've got an issue and wanting to solve that problem is ultimately the only step you can take. No matter how many people ring you up like Brian Noble and say you're drinking too much and your lifestyle needs to change. If you don't want to change, you're not going to change, and if you're not ready to change or admit it, then you won't change. The chat with mum and dad and then going to see the doctor in Alan Young was the change in my life from 2008 onwards, where I quit the drink completely and got fit on my bike and used training as that vice. But until you're ready to admit that, then you're on a downward spiral. And I think I can use that again in the Ridyard or a player who drinks a little bit too much now. And I've had a couple at the rugby union that have had an high opinion of themselves when they're not that good at rugby, and the lifestyle's not great, and they're coming to a crossroads where I went left, and if they don't go right, they're going to end up where I ended up. So there's a little bit of an experience factor in that, and managing, as Gary said, managing that player and putting your arm around him and asking what he needs, and if you can help in any way, whether that is just getting in touch with somebody from State of Mind or Sporting Chance or any other organisation which can help with players' mental well-being.
I want to ask you about your time at Doncaster, because that seemed to be a springboard. Obviously, it got you eventually into coaching. I don't think that was the plan when you went.
No.
That's how it turned out. And real good time for you at Doncaster, wasn't it? And, what you achieved there.
Yeah, chance, really. I started writing a column in the Old Daily Mail, a local column on both the whole clubs, which kept my hand in while Mum was ill, and I enjoyed doing that and writing that. And then it was actually Mel Harmon who signed me for LFC as a 16-year-old that got in touch with me about Carl Hall. Went to meet Carl, and it went from there. And big jump for me, because I was doing okay at the shop fitting. I was enjoying my time on and off site, and home for a few days with the family, and no pressures of rugby league where there's media or any spotlight on performance. So I took a big wage cut to go back part-time and into a community role with Doncaster. And what was most important was the community role, not the rugby role, because my passion then was to help other people in a situation where I'd maybe been, whether that was from a young age or going into clubs to speak to young professional players, that are 18, 19. It was never to coach, or it was the secondary part to that was to play, but it turned out to be a fantastic move for me, and I owe, as I say in the book, I owe a great deal to Carl Hall, Tony Miller, and the Doncaster club for getting me back involved in rugby. And it was a big step, as I said, and it took something great from Doncaster and a bit of negotiating and some hard work on their part to get me back involved in the game.
And you've dallied with the dark side, the rugby union as well at the Knights, and they play some good stuff as well. They're easy on the eye, aren't you? Clive Griffiths, you give him a mention in your book as well. Do you feel that's opened up another avenue for you, maybe going further down the line?
Yeah, possibly. Rugby's rugby. They still have, they still catch and they still pass. They kick a little bit more, but there's some skill to that. There's a little bit more stop-start with scrums and line-outs, but very technical. We have a laugh and a joke about the stats that they have, about 5 runs and 6 tackles, but every breakdown's like a rugby league tackle or a carry, and if you're hitting 70 rucks a game, then you know about it. If you get your head in the wrong place, you'll know about it as well, because you'll be copping one on the back of the neck, and it's a tough sport. And there's some big similarities, there's some massive differences, but as I said, everybody catches and passes the ball in both codes, and there's some very skillful and very strong and quick players in rugby union too.
You're at Lee. Their dream to get in Super League, they've achieved it, but they've done it at the cost of your club, Hull.
Yeah.
What do you make of their plight at the moment?
Yeah, I always said that, we wanted to get to Super League, and if that was at the detriment of Hull Kingston Rovers for Lee, then that wouldn't bother me, because I'm employed by Lee, and I'm, quite open and honest about that. I couldn't care less who went down as long as we went up, and if it happens to be Hull Kingston Rovers, so be it. I'd have preferred them to stay up. I'm an East Hull boy, and I think the game will be worse off without them, in terms of revenue away supporters and obviously the home support as well. So they find themselves in a little bit of a transitional period, and I still speak to Neil quite regular, and he's asked my opinion a little bit on how we did it at Lee and how we achieved what we achieved, and they're playing a bit of a dangerous game with regard. You can drop to a championship standard. They're not going to have to play too well next year to win games. They can win it in reverse, if you like, or first or second gear, and they'll only have to play well probably once every 4 or 5 weeks, and then middle eights comes and you've got to play well 7 weeks, and the players might not be up to that. So it's important that they get the strategy right to return. As far as we're concerned at Lee, it's about us and where we can get to and avoiding them middle eights.
And just finally then from us here on Radio Yorkshire, the book, has it been everything you wanted it to be?
Yeah, Adrian, as I said, has done a magnificent job with the format of the book. It's just a story that I've lived, and it's now out there in print, but the real hard work's gone on from the publishers and from Adrian, and really pleased for them that it's actually selling. Again, I'm not too bothered whether it did or it didn't. It was just something that a promise that I fulfilled to a woman that defended me till a dying day, and that's as proud as I get with that. The reaction's been fantastic, and I'm thankful for that, but it wasn't the reason I wrote the book or put my story out there. It was simply to fulfil that promise. As far as Adrian and the publishers go, the hard work's been done by them, and I'm really pleased that the sales has gone that way for them.
Good stuff, Paul. Thank you for your time on Radio Yorkshire.
Thanks,
I do sincerely
Cheers.
appreciate
Thank
it. We'll try and grab a word with Adrian if we can. It is a good book, Scully. I know, like you said, you don't read a lot of books.
Great book. Oh, honestly, yeah. I say last Monday, well, I was 12 minutes late into the studio, wasn't it? The interesting fact is he didn't even come looking for me. But yeah, and I say when I got home, Mark, opened it straight up, 9:15 I started reading it, and I say it was 1:45 when I went to bed, and I never do that, and the next morning, got on with it again and just finished it. Great read, absolute great read. And I say it's been open and honest. And I tell you what, though, every time I say Cooke, when he sees Brian Noble, surely he's got a growl at him. It's pathetic why he never played for Great Britain.
Well, let's speak to the man that wrote the book. Adrian Durham joins us. Adrian, welcome along. You must be delighted with how the book has been received, because it is a job well done.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I am. Yeah, we had no preconceptions of how many were going to go, whether people were going to buy it or not. We just didn't know. We had no idea. So the reaction that Paul's been getting on social media and generally has been totally fantastic, overwhelming, I'd say, to the point of being quite emotional about it. I have to say, really, really happy, really happy.
Looking at the book, the one thing that struck me is the running commentary from the people involved in all the key incidents. Was that just something you thought about? How did that come about? Because that, to me, adds so much to the book. Rather than just someone having a little say at the end of it, they're actually telling you at the time, I thought this, he should have done that, and he's a so-and-so.
It's hard work, Mark. It was hard work getting all that together, but it was worth it, because I think if you've read it like that, that's exactly how I wanted it to come across. I said to Paul from the start, he wanted total honesty. I wanted it from him. And I said, well, listen, let's get everybody else's views, whether they agree with you, whether they're against you, whatever it might be. And he was absolutely all for it. So I'm delighted all bar one decided to come on board and talk. And I just thought it was worth having their side of things in it, because that's the full story. So an autobiography is what it is. It's that person's point of view, their commentary on their career. And that's exactly what it should be. But I said to Paul, let's get the full story. Other people have different views on what happened. And so many controversial incidents in his career. Just thought it was well worth getting their views on it.
And the book itself, when you finished it, were you happy with it then, or has it surprised you even more how it's been received?
Yeah, I think it's given me immense happiness how it's been received. I have to say that, but I wasn't expecting that. I hadn't sort of factored that in. So that's been a lovely little surprise for me. But yeah, when the book was completed, it wasn't that I was happy with it. It was that Paul was happy with it. His dad was also happy with it, which was very important for us both. So once those two put the tick in the box, I was absolutely fine with everything, I have to say.
I say as well, because I've asked Cooke certainly regarding a couple of people in Brian Noble, why he never got picked for Great Britain, and also to Justin Morgan, the way he treated him. But when you was interviewing these people and for the book, and the way that what they were saying, was you thinking, how can you treat a person like this? How can you treat the best player of the club like dirt, to be honest with you?
Yeah, listen, in Justin's case, I've known Justin quite a while, and I actually really get on with him. So it was quite easy to ask him these questions and for him to be honest with me and get those answers. So I've got a lot of respect for what Justin did at Hull KL, because he got them up and he established them in Super League, and within no time at all they finished fourth and were in the playoffs. So you've got to respect what he did, Justin Morgan, at Hull KL. So yeah, I mean, but listen, Cooke was my favourite player. I travelled miles and paid a lot of money to watch him play, because he was a field player. A wonderful player, off the cuff, magical at times, and match winning at times as well. And in the frustrating interview, I have to say you're right, it was Brian Noble, because as much as
yeah, I was just going to come here. Go on.
As much as you got to respect Brian Noble's career, I'm looking back and thinking, oh, just put Breers in, just put Cooke in, just see what they can do. If they don't do anything, then change it again, but just give them a flipping chance.
Well, because I said to Cooke, because a big part of sport now, because we know all the times, Adrian, it doesn't matter what sport, they're all pampered and this sort of thing, but Noble didn't even give him the decency of making a phone call and say, Cooke, can we have a chat? I know you like a beer, this sort of thing, but at the end of the day, surely it should have been picked on his playing ability, not because he likes a beer, because, as I said to him, one of the best players that he'll ever go down play the game is Andrew Johns from Australia, and I can reassure you, he could drink the River Air dry, don't worry about that, I can reassure you, but he never stopped him performing at international level, but I find it quite strange, and as you say there with Brian, no, it must have been, again, frustrating for you, having you knowing how good Cooke was as a player.
Well, listen, I went to, I know it wasn't Brian Noble's time, but I went to that one-off test in Sydney, we lost 64-10. I travelled all the way down there as a fan for that. I wasn't working or anything. I was a fan. So, I remember watching the game thinking, yeah, it's difficult. It's mid-season, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot wrong with that test. And obviously this subject is coming up again under the new coach. But even so, all that period of time, there was for me, there wasn't some good players in there, some good halfbacks in there, but that real bit of magic, that Andrew Johns magic. I mean, if Brian Noble had Andrew Johns in his team, what would he have done? Would he have just been structured, or would he have said, go and play? He'd have probably said, go and play, wouldn't he? So why didn't he do that with Cooke?
I tell you what, mate, he'd have been playing, and he'd have been drinking and drinking and drinking. That's what Johns, well, everybody will tell you, and Johns will say from there, so I find it very strange, and, Paul, it doesn't seem as though that he's frustrated with not being selected ever for Great Britain, which I find absolutely astonishing, because him and Breers, as we're saying, we don't know how it would have worked out, or whether they would have won the Ashes, but I'll tell you what, would have gone far closer, and would have been far more attractive to watch.
Yeah, we at a time when we were struggling to make a breakthrough, to break them down, to be on top, to dominate in international rugby league, there were two players there. I mean, Cookie's very respectful to Lee Breers, says he's the greatest never to have played against the Aussies or the Kiwis, and I tend to agree with him. He was magical, wasn't he, Lee Breers, at times? But Cooke was too, and it frustrates me. You can't turn back the clock, but it does frustrate me. Brian Noble had his reasons. He talked about the competition. I didn't buy it, basically. When he's given me his reasons, it's not for me to have an argument with him. He's put his reasons out there. He's been good enough to explain it. Brian, I totally disagree with you. You were wrong.
You, in your role at talkSPORT, you are listened to by millions of people every week. You are a big supporter. That's what they tell me. That's what we tell everyone on our show. Don't worry about that. You're a big supporter of Rugby League. Do you feel a responsibility almost? Because you are championing it to many, many people. Phil always says we're great at preaching to the converted. We all know what a great game rugby is, but we need more people to understand what a great game it is, don't we?
To an extent, yeah, I know what you mean. It's a bit weird, actually. It's a bit weird because down south there are a lot of people who love Rugby League. A lot of my colleagues at talkSPORT who are London-based, they watch the games on TV. But it is perceived as an M62 sport, and that is it. And I think, listen, I've got a lot to say eventually at some point about expansionism, and yeah, I get it, I understand what they're trying to do, but the Toronto thing leaves me a bit bewildered. Let's see how it goes. I think the international game and bringing Spain and Russia into it, there's nothing negative about that, growing the game. But we need to look after what we have already as a priority, I think, and make that stronger. I've just been having a conversation in another room about, did the Super 8s work? Can you get rid of the grand final? Going back to having champions after X amount of games, shorten the season, make it easier for players, improve the quality. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Listen, if I can bring a different perspective on it and at the same time bring the game to more people, then I'm happy to have helped in some small way.
Are you excited by England? Can they win the Four Nations, do you think?
Yes, they can. Listen, I watched Australia and New Zealand at the weekend. The Aussies are good. There's a couple of players that Meninga's left out. Whether he's right to do that or not is open to debate, and that could play into our hands. I would like to think, listen, the pressure's on Wayne Bennett. He's this super coach. He's taken over a good group of lads who are together as an England team. They've just won the series against New Zealand. It's all set up for Wayne Bennett to do well. He's got no excuses, in my opinion. And I look at it and I think, right, the big test is the Aussies, obviously. New Zealand's last couple of tests against Australia haven't played particularly well. They're beatable. Okay, should I discount Scotland? Yeah. So, Australia are the big test. Now, he should know everything there is to know about Mal Meninga. So, Wayne Bennett, over to you. What you got?
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Just finally then on the book, I guess very, very emotional for you as well as Paul. How do you look back on it now? Because the sales we hear going very well.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know figures. I've not really looked at it. It's not really my bag. I just want to write the book and make sure it's as good as it can be. Yeah, very emotional. I tell you what's really emotional is the fact that you make so many friends along the way doing it. I even consider myself to be on good terms with Kath Hetherington, which
wow.
I know, but yeah, I do. It's but Paul has become a lifelong friend. His dad is somebody I respect and admire hugely for what he's been through over the last 10 years. So, yeah, it truly emotional. It's brought a few tears to the eyes and some happiness as well.
It really is a great book. I think the fact that Scully, he missed the opening of our show last week. He started reading it in the adverts and he missed the opening 15 minutes of our show. Some would argue it's the best 15 minutes of our show there's ever been.
Were you just looking at the pictures?
But no, well done. England, are they going to win it then? I know you've thrown it to Bennett, but are they going to do it?
If he's as good as he's cracked up to be, Wayne Bennett, England will win the Four Nations. Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, if I've had this argument with Scully tonight, if McGilvery's on the wing and he's up against Valentine Holmes, then it could be a dangerous situation for England.
It could be indeed. Adrian, thank you for your time. Congratulations on the book. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
We are giving away a copy. I Want Cookie's book on Twitter at RLonRY. Scully, we've nearly done for time. Another 2 hours flies by as it does every Monday night. You're going to Australia next week. Are you going to be telling them that England are going to win the Four Nations?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, as Adrian just said, we've half a chance. So let's see what Wayne Bennett is. But one thing for sure, Adrian Durham needs to get to the doctors. Kath Hetherington, bit of personality. Must be bonkers. Must be bonkers.
Yeah, just be careful. I'm not sure how good our lawyer is. Thanks to Phil, by the way. And Phil's sister made a lovely cup of tea. Nice cakes. Did you enjoy all them cakes?
Well, supposed to bring some flapjack, but these 32s are nipping. That's why I've stayed off it.
Yeah, well, don't try zipping them up then, will you? Phil, thank you for your hospitality. Thanks to Adrian. Thanks to Cookie as well. If you can get the book, get it. It is a magnificent read. I've read it a couple of times. It is absolutely brilliant. That's it. That's as far as we go this week. At RLonRY on Twitter.